"Kelly, your boyfriend looks so rough that he's scared my girlfriend away," said Simon, smiling proudly. Kelly glared at him coldly and didn't respond. She turned to Alex and suggested softly, "Let's move over there. Are you thirsty? I'll get you a drink." Kelly pulled Alex to a long table with fruits and drinks, but his attention was on Simon. He was thinking of everything that he had heard about Kathy since he last saw her. The last time he saw Kathy was in the boutique, and he had not seen her since. He was worried that she was not able to raise the $350,000 that Billy wanted, and that Billy really would get one of his friends to do something terrible to her. He had asked his classmates about Kathy's situation, but they could only tell him that she had taken a long leave of absence and had only returned to the dormitory occasionally, spending most of her time outside the campus. As he hadn't seen her for a while, and then he had been distracted by the visit from Debbie's mother, Carla, he hadn't been thinking much about Kathy's situation recently. When he suddenly saw her today, everything came flooding back, and he wanted to know what was happening. One of Simon's rich friends was asking him about Kathy. "Simon, where did you find her? You look great together." Simon replied, "Her name is Kathy, and she goes to Preston University. The other day I was a bit bored, so I heard that there was a student holding a photographic exhibition at the university, so I decided to sneak onto campus and take a look. I was walking across the square to the library when this gorgeous creature walked right into me." The others burst into laughter. They were all very similar to Simon, so they didn't find him selfish or superficial at all. "Of course," Simon continued proudly, "Kathy was crying at the time. The fact was she owed some lowlife $350,000. She could probably tell straight away that I was rich, so she held my hand and said that as long as I helped her pay off her debt, she'd be willing to be my girlfriend. As you all know, I don't have any trouble pulling women, but something about her really caught my eye, so I was happy to give her the money, and now she's mine." His friends looked at him admiringly. One said, "That's still pretty generous, Simon, to give her $350,000 just like that." Another agreed, "Simon, since you really like this woman, are you going to keep her for a while this time? You got bored of your last few girlfriends in less than a month." Simon came from a rich family, but he was also very shrewd with his money. "I haven't nearly finished with her yet." Alex heard what Simon said and frowned. He turned to Kelly and said, "I need to go to the bathroom," then walked into the villa. Sharon looked at Kelly with concern and said, "Kelly, I can't stop thinking there's something weird going on between Alex and that girl, Kathy." Kelly didn't reply. She was quietly watching Alex walking away. In the bathroom, Kathy was leaning against the wall, wondering to herself, how did Alex end up here with Simon's cousin? What's he doing with her? Is it something to do with this girl Kelly that Alex suddenly became rich? In the mirror, she noticed the reflection of someone walking into the bathroom. She quickly adjusted her hair and makeup and made herself smile. When she saw that it was Alex, her smile turned cold in an instant. She crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, scowling at him with disdain. She muttered, "It's only you, you scumbag." Alex sighed. She hadn't changed at all. He walked up to her anyway. "Get lost, don't you know that you stink?" Kathy said in disgust. Being rude to Alex had cheered her up a bit. "I've got one thing to say, and then I'll leave," he replied, although he knew she didn't even want to look at him now. "Simon's a really horrible person. You should leave him as soon as you can. You'll be worse off than you were with Billy." "Are you serious?" She turned around and looked at him angrily. "You've got the nerve to say that to me? You're still hanging out with Simon's cousin. If Simon's not a good person, then his cousin isn't either." "You've misunderstood me. I'm just trying to look out for you. And I'm not Kelly's boyfriend," he replied calmly. "Why are you still arguing with me?" Kathy didn't believe him at all. "Just now in the garden, why didn't you deny being Kelly's boyfriend? Don't think you can deceive me. I know what's going on. That $100,000 donation you made to the village, then buying designer clothes in the boutique, it's all because of Kelly, isn't it? You're with her for money, aren't you? She's supporting you." "What?" Alex was stunned as he listened to her accusations. "What's wrong?" Kathy sneered. Alex, it won't matter if I tell everyone. You don't seem to have any problems picking up girls. First you went off with that country peasant, then you met Kelly and decided to use her to provide money for you and your peasant girlfriend. Sounds like a great plan. You disgust me. Alex looked at her incredulously and replied, I just wanted to tell you that Simon is only with you for one thing. He was telling all his friends while you were in the restroom. And before he came, with my own eyes, I saw him hugging and kissing another woman. So what? She said. Alex found Kathy's carefree response bewildering. She said, From when we first met, I knew Simon only wanted one thing, but he did help me pay off Billy, and even bought me some pretty clothes and cosmetics. That's good enough for me. She continued, Of course he's playing with me, and I'm also using him. It doesn't bother me that he doesn't want to marry me. He brings me to parties like this where I meet so many wealthy young men, and I'm sure I'll end up with one of them, and then I'll be much richer than you'll ever be, pretty boy. Alex felt stupid for trying to help Kathy when he realized that she had already thought it all through and was well aware of this situation. He pitied her that she could have so little self-respect as to let herself be used by such a lowlife as Simon in this way. He turned around to leave, but Kathy pulled him back violently. He looked at her waringly. She said, So you came here to help me, did you? Is that because you're still in love with me? She looked at him with contempt. You're so sad. I've dumped you so many times already, but you can't stay away from me. You still want me to change my mind and come back to you, right? Don't be such an idiot. Alex was regretting his decision to try to help Kathy. She was totally unreasonable. Now he just wanted to get back outside and get some fresh air. He muttered, Think what you like, I'm going. But Kathy grabbed his arm tightly and said, You just want to leave like that? Let go of me. Alex swung his arm forcefully, but her fingers were like pincers, holding on to him tightly. He asked, What are you trying to do? What do you mean? Kathy glared at him. She clenched her teeth as she blamed him for all their recent humiliations. What are you doing? Alex asked again. In response, Kathy suddenly shouted out loudly, Let go, you pervert! Then she screamed, Someone come quickly! Alex heard footsteps and understood what she was doing. He tried to speak. You... Kathy sneered at Alex, let go of his arm, and rushed out of the bathroom, bumping into Simon, who had rushed over when he heard the commotion. Simon put his arms around Kathy and anxiously asked, What's wrong, baby? The rest of the guests also gathered around her. Alex had no choice but to slowly walk out of the bathroom. It was him. Kathy pointed at Alex and said, He was trying to me in the bathroom. What? Simon looked at Alex furiously. Hell, this doesn't want to live anymore. How dare he touch Simon's woman? Said one of the guests when they heard what was happening. Another agreed. He looks like a total lowlife. What a nerve, and right in Simon's house. Beat him up, shouted another. Simon was fuming. He let go of Kathy and walked slowly toward Alex, growling, I can't believe I let you stay at the party. I should have kicked you out when I first set eyes on you. How dare you try it on with my woman in my own home? Well, you're not getting away with it. The other guests crossed their arms and watched the two men squaring up to each other. They were enjoying the show and were really looking forward to watching Simon beat up Alex. Simon's fists were clenched, and he was getting ready to hit Alex in the face when they all heard a shout from behind them. Don't touch him! Simon turned around and saw that the others had moved to one side to allow Kelly through. She walked over with a serious expression. Kelly walked slowly between the two men and stood in front of Alex, still glowering at Simon. What are you doing? Simon asked, glaring back at her. He's mine. Don't you dare touch him, she replied passionately. He touched my girlfriend. How can I not touch him? Simon asked angrily. Alex, did you touch her? Kelly asked Alex without looking at him. She was still glaring at Simon. Alex looked at Kathy and replied, No, I didn't do anything. She's lying. I know this woman and she'll say anything to hurt me. My boyfriend said he didn't do it, Kelly said coldly. Did you not damn well hear what my girlfriend said? He tried to touch her. Why would she make it up? You're accusing my girlfriend of lying, right? Simon said emphatically, so much so that he was almost spitting saliva. Even if she's telling the truth, I'm not letting you hurt Alex. Kelly was adamant. She wouldn't change her mind. Simon was so angry that his face turned bright red. He shouted, Kelly! However, he knew that Kelly's family outranked his own. So he was powerless to do anything. He had to admit that he was beaten. Simon's anger deflated like a gas tank releasing pressure. Kathy couldn't believe it. She sneered at Kelly and said, "Kelly, why are you protecting him? Are you just going to believe him when he says that he didn't touch me? You've only been dating him for a few days, so you don't know what he's like. I was with him for an entire year." Kathy saw Kelly still protecting Alex and was furious. She didn't want him to be happy with her, and she was determined to destroy their relationship. Then she and Kelly could get their revenge on Alex together. Everyone stared at Kathy in shock. Had Kathy and Alex previously been together? "Babe, is this the ex-boyfriend you told me about?" Simon asked, walking over to Kathy. "Yes, that's him," she said, sneering at Alex. "Ha ha." Simon laughed arrogantly and swaggered over to Kelly. "Kelly, you have no idea what kind of boyfriend you'll be getting with him. He would take you out for fast food, and if you got a room, then it would be the cheapest one available. Would you really feel special with a boyfriend like that?" He smiled proudly. As he saw Kelly frown, he got even happier. "That's right," Kathy said, walking over to stand beside Kelly and Alex. She looked at Alex with a cold smile. "One time I was sick, and even though I didn't even know him, he just came over with a month's worth of food. But then he got tired and didn't do anything for 6 months. Even though Kelly was polite, she couldn't help but get angry. "Get out of my way," she said. "Hey, cousin, you've got quite the temper," Simon said, smirking. "We're just telling the truth. If you don't believe us, ask him." She knew that Alex was poor, and Kathy's words might have some basis in truth, but she must have made up most of it. Kelly trusted Alex, and the man who had dared to drive into a group of people that night was definitely nothing like the one Kathy had just described. "You don't believe me, do you?" Kathy asked, taking out her cell phone. "I saved the messages he sent when we were together. Oh, don't get me wrong, I'm not pining after him. I just want a reminder of why I definitely don't want him." She opened the chat history with Alex. "Let me show you what he said to me back then." She began to read the messages out loud. "Kathy, how did you sleep? The street outside the school has been closed for a while, so I took the bus to get some food. I just came back, but I can get someone to bring you food if you need it." She continued reading. "I'm still short of money for the makeup you want, but don't worry, I'll definitely buy it for you. I'm still washing dishes at the restaurant, and I've also found a part-time delivery job." She smirked as she read the next message. "Kathy, since you said that you were tired of eating in the canteen, then I'll take you to this snack bar instead. It's quite nice there, and it's been busy for the past 3 days. They have a 20% discount." Everyone was crowded around Kathy, looking at her phone and laughing as she read each message. As she spoke, her eyes locked onto Alex's face. Seeing how serious he looked, she became even prouder of herself. Alex was hurt. He didn't regret a single word of what he had written. He had sent those messages because they'd been in a relationship and he had loved her. Everything he had written had come straight from his heart, even though it looked ridiculous now. He was also angry because those messages were a reminder of the feelings they had once shared, and he didn't understand why she would use them to publicly humiliate him. Kathy smiled, and her words stabbed at his heart like knives. "Hey, let us look," one of the men said, taking the phone and beginning to read the chat messages. "Kathy," he read, "is your mind too busy to sleep? Are you thinking about me like I'm thinking about you?" "Kathy," he said, moving on to the next message, "I just realized that you look like one of my favorite actresses. I'm so lucky to have you as my girlfriend. Every man on the planet is probably jealous of me. I've only been eating 1 meal a day so I can save the money to buy a phone for you. Don't worry about me. If a new phone will make you happy, then it's worth not eating much." "Damn," someone said. "He just lays it all out there, doesn't he?" "Ugh, he's making me sick," came another voice. The young men passed around Kathy's phone. As they read, they laughed so hard that they had to hold their stomachs and tears ran down their faces. The phone was finally returned to Kathy. "Kelly," she said, "now do you see what kind of person this guy used to be?" Kelly's gaze flickered slightly, but she still trusted Alex. Even with everything she had heard, she still thought he was a man worth pursuing. "Hey, Kelly, I'll admit that you're smarter than me, but you have a terrible taste in men. Are you really going to waste yourself on someone who has no money and no backbone? Kelly was very angry. She didn't believe that Alex was the kind of man Kathy and the others had described. She slowly turned to him and asked softly, "Is what they said true?" Even with the chat history, she didn't believe it. Alex must have had a good reason for his behavior, and if he denied everything, she would stand by him. Alex said nothing. He just glanced at Kelly, and her heart began to hurt. He was admitting it. "But you have a reason for it all, don't you?" she asked, longing to hear him defend himself. "No," Alex said, lowering his eyes. He refused to deny loving Kathy in the past. He also didn't want Kelly to fall any deeper in love with him. From the way she looked at him, he suspected that she was already too attached. Kelly bit her lip as she looked resentfully at Alex. His behavior was making it hard for her to tell what kind of person he was. "And I was the one who left him," Kathy said proudly, looking at Alex. "He looked so miserable." Seeing the situation developing as he'd expected, and seeing Alex's lovely look, Kathy was extremely happy. She needed to work even harder and make sure that Kelly grew angry with Alex. That way she would dump him and he would lose her money. And without the money, he wouldn't be able to maintain his relationship with Debbie. "To get me back, he tried to show off to me at school," Kathy said sharply, pointing at Alex. "He invited me to eat at Madison Park and donated money to charity to get back in my good books. He also bought me a lot of clothes, and then he tried to get me drunk and take me to a hotel. He was absolutely shameless, and I'm lucky he didn't get away with it." Alex's heart grew cold. To get revenge on him, Kathy was telling lies. "Is that true?" Kelly asked with a trembling voice. Tears flowed down her face, striking at Alex's heart. But he couldn't let her get any more attached to him. He just looked at Kelly quietly, not saying a word, but his heart was suffering just like hers. "Kelly," Simon said, smiling as he walked around her, "look at this good boyfriend you found. He's clearly guilty, and you still want to bring this into our house. You're just messing with us, right? And the family thinks so much of you. Do you really have the courage to face our family with a boyfriend like that?" Kelly had always been one of the more favored members of her family. When she had grown up, she had been given an important position in the family business, and she was valued and loved. Because of this, some of her cousins resented her, including Simon, who was taking advantage of this opportunity to hurt her. She had been staring bitterly at Alex, afraid of misjudging him. But now she walked up to him and yelled, "She's obviously making fun of you, so speak up. Tell everyone that she's lying and that you didn't do any of that." Alex lowered his gaze and didn't say a word. Kelly was angry and disappointed. This was not the hot-blooded man who had stood against more than 10 people the night they had met. He was a coward. "Say something," she demanded. "Anything." It didn't matter what the truth was. If he said something or if he simply shook his head, she would believe him. But he did nothing at all. "Speak!" Kelly screamed, feeling like she was about to go crazy. Everyone was shocked. She glared at Alex with teary eyes as she yelled, "I hate you!" With that, she turned and ran through the crowd. "You, Alex, if anything happens to Kelly, I'll never forgive you," Sharon said, and then she chased after her friend, calling, "Kelly, wait for me." Alex raised his head and looked in the direction Kelly had left. He sighed slightly. "I already have Debbie," he thought. "I'm sorry, Kelly." With Kelly gone, Alex became the crowd's new target, and he slowly pushed his way through them all. "Get lost, nobody wants you here," a young man said, pushing at Alex, who glared at him angrily, making the man shrink back. Kathy had achieved her goal. Looking at Alex's slumped shoulders, her eyes showed a hint of coldness as she whispered, "Alex, I said I would make you pay for humiliating me." Alex had lost a day to Kathy's scheming, but at least one good thing had come out of it. Kelly had completely given up on him. In the afternoon, Alex went to pick up Debbie from band practice. When she saw the scratch on his face, he lied and said that he had accidentally cut himself. They got on a bus and sat in the last row, just like when they had first met. "What's wrong? Why do you look unhappy?" Debbie asked, holding Alex's hand. After a few days of rehearsal with the band, she had gradually recovered from Carla's death. "It's nothing," he said, realizing that he should be focused on Debbie. He looked at her with a faint smile. "Why are you so happy? Ever since we got on the bus, you've been grinning." "I have not," Debbie said, but she was still smiling. She looked at him with bright eyes. "Janice said she's arranging for us to go to Chicago in the next few days to participate in that popular talent show, The Sky's the Limit." "That's great news," Alex said, happy for her. "I'll go with you." "No need," Debbie said. "Janice said we'll be rehearsing while we're in Chicago. She has a lot of plans for us, and it might take several days." She stared into his eyes and said seriously, "You should stay at school and study hard. There's nothing you can do anyway, and I can take care of myself." "Okay," Alex answered, deliberately dragging it out. "But I'm afraid that once you get to Chicago, other men will snatch you away. After all, a big city like Chicago is full of handsome rich men. Well, I'm just from Preston University." Debbie laughed. She glanced at Alex, giving him a fake arrogant look, and said, "And now you realize how important I am? As for whether I'll be stolen away, that'll depend on you. If you treat me well enough, then I won't notice any other men when I'm there." With that, her lips twitched and she stifled a giggle. Alex smiled at her and began to massage her shoulders, and she smirked as if her evil scheme had succeeded. "Are you comfortable?" he asked. "Just so." "Then when you get to Chicago, will you close your eyes so you don't see other men?" "I might close one eye," she teased. "Only one?" he asked, grinning as he continued to massage her. "How about this? Will you close both eyes now?" "Maybe 1.5." 3 days later, Debbie, Janice, and the other members of Dream Chasers boarded a flight to Chicago to pursue their dream. Alex, who was back at Preston University, added Chicago to his phone's weather forecast. In the cafeteria, he ordered a plate of spaghetti, took it over to a table, and sat down. Just as he took a bite, he heard a sweet voice ask, "Can I join you?" He looked up and saw Kelly standing in front of him. She was wearing a blue and purple print top and a pair of cobalt blue shorts, making her look really pretty. Kelly put her hands behind her back and looked at Alex with a gentle smile. "Oh," Alex said. A strand of spaghetti fell off his fork and back onto the plate. The last time he had seen Kelly, she had been disappointed and angry at him. After she had hit him, she had run away. "You're wondering why I'm here when I was so angry at you before, right?" Kelly asked, sitting across from him. "To be honest, I was furious at the time, and after I got home, I cried for ages. After what Kathy said, I felt that you weren't at all like the man who saved me that night." She looked into his eyes. "But when I woke up the next morning, I felt much calmer." Alex merely stared at her. "I believe that Kathy was telling the truth," she said. "But I also think it was mixed with exaggeration and lies. You were so determined to reject me that day, and I don't believe that you would beg her to take you back. Those messages you sent were quite normal when you were in a relationship. As for when she said you tried to get her drunk in the bar and then take her to a room—" "Maybe I did," Alex interrupted in a low voice. "No, I don't believe that," Kelly stated, watching him closely. "That's up to you," he said, glancing at her. "But as you said before, I promised to pretend to be your boyfriend at that party, and now it's over." No matter how she felt about him, he wasn't going to date her for real. "I'll go back on my word," Kelly stated, not beating around the bush. Alex didn't know what to say. He looked down and started to eat his spaghetti. He would never again believe anything Kelly said. No matter what, he would simply pretend he didn't hear her and that she wasn't there. "Alex, are you angry?" she asked, lowering her head to try to make eye contact. Alex concentrated on eating his meal. What did she expect him to say? "Alex, please don't be angry at me," she said, reaching out to touch his shoulder. She didn't expect his reaction. With a wave of his hand, he shook her off. "Ow!" she yelped with pain. "What's wrong?" he asked. When he had shaken off her hand, he seemed to have pinched her thumb. Kelly held the thumb of her left hand and frowned as she looked at him. "Let me see." He put down his fork and grabbed her hand. His heart sped up the moment he touched her, and he quickly focused his attention on her hand. "How is it?" he asked as he gently massaged her thumb. Much better, she said with a trace of a smile. Noticing the small scar on his cheekbone, she felt guilty. Does your face still hurt? He shook his head slightly and glanced up at her. It's fine, he said, letting go of her hand. I'm sorry, she said. I lost my temper. He didn't answer and simply went back to eating his spaghetti. Can I have some of that? Kelly asked softly. Alex glanced up and saw her watching him expectantly. I'll go and get you some, he said. He had already forgotten that he had promised himself he would ignore her. No need, she said with a smile. She got up, grabbed a fork, and sat across the table from him. Is this okay? Whatever, Alex said. As he lowered his head to eat, another fork came into view. Kelly twirled some spaghetti around her fork and put it in her mouth. It was delicious. They continued to share the same plate of pasta, drawing envious looks from many of the male students in the cafeteria. Kelly took some more and placed it in her mouth. This string of spaghetti was very long, and it didn't break when she lifted it. Slowly, she worked her way along with it, looking up in shock as her lips made contact with Alex's mouth. They both opened their eyes wide. Alex's face turned red with embarrassment, and he quickly bit off his end of the spaghetti strand. He jerked his face away from her. I'm sorry, he said. Seeing Alex get flustered, Kelly couldn't help but laugh sweetly. Alex was stunned. Kelly's laugh was extremely charming, and before he knew it, he had a silly smile on his face. Alex and Kelly were still both a little dazed when Alex's phone rang. He took it out and saw that it was a video call from Debbie. He glanced nervously at Kelly and then accepted the call. Debbie's beautiful face appeared on the screen. She had just finished unpacking in Chicago, and she couldn't wait to speak to Alex. Alex, where are you? She asked, smiling sweetly. I'm in the cafeteria, he answered. Look, I'm having spaghetti. He angled the camera to show his plate. Oh, why do you have 2 forks? She asked curiously. Ah, panic flashed across Alex's face for a moment, and then he smiled lightly. I accidentally dropped my fork on the floor and had to get another one. When she heard Alex lie, Kelly's bottom lip trembled. Oh, okay. Debbie didn't seem worried. She moved her phone around the room, showing it to Alex. Look, this is the practice room Janice got for us. We'll be rehearsing here before we go to the talent show. Hey, it looks pretty good, Alex said. And then he frowned with concern. If you're staying in Chicago for a few days, are you sure you don't need me there? We'll be here for about a week or so, she said. I told you that I don't need you to come. I'm trying to do what's best for you. Okay, he said. Take good care of yourself in Chicago, and I'll see you when you get back. After talking to Alex for a while, Debbie ended the call. You love your girlfriend a lot, Kelly said with a faint smile. Yes, Alex said. So, do you understand now? After talking to Debbie, he was resolved again. He had to be clearer with Kelly. He was no longer afraid of Kelly getting more attached to him, but he was worried that he might fall in love with her. I understand, Kelly said, but I'm still not giving up. As I said before, perhaps after a while, you'll realize that I'm more compatible with you. She wasn't avoiding reality, but she refused to hide her feelings for him. Alex was speechless. Then he got angry. Kelly was intentionally trying to destroy his relationship with Debbie. Scowling at her, he got up and left the cafeteria. Kelly had a faint smile on her face as she watched him leave. Then her gaze slowly shifted to the plate of spaghetti on the table. She picked up a fork and started to eat, feeling a little sad. Janice called Debbie and the others together. From the moment the 5 girls set foot in Chicago, their hearts were pounding with excitement. They dreamed of becoming famous and earning lots of money. And now that they had arrived in Chicago for the talent show, they had officially taken the first step. Everyone seems to be doing really well, Janice stated. I hope you can all stay so positive until we have successfully competed in the talent show. She looked around at them. As you all know, The Sky's the Limit is currently the most popular talent show on TV and the internet. And their sponsor is Lee Dempsey. For this year's show, he has invited 4 celebrities to be the judges. Lee Dempsey was well known for being exceptionally rich. Although he wasn't as famous as some other businessmen, his wealth and achievements were impressive. The girls all understood what Janice was saying. This was their big chance to make their mark. Melissa, Katie, and Olivia had been quiet since they got off the plane. They were determined to do their best to show off in the talent show and to fight for victory. They all wore exquisite makeup. Even while they were rehearsing, a reporter might come and interview them, and they could still show off their skills. As she listened to Janice speak, Melissa lightly twirled a lock of hair around one finger. She was busy imagining doing an interview and deciding how she would attract the attention of the judges. "Now that it's almost time, I'm ready to announce the leader of the band, and also the lead singer," Janice said. Melissa's attention was immediately drawn back to her, and the others also focused on Janice. The leader was an important role in the band. When interviewed, the leader would speak on behalf of everyone, which meant that they would be the most famous member of the band. The next most famous would be the main singer. Melissa had always wanted those two roles, and she was sure that she was the perfect candidate for both. But would Janice let her take both roles at the same time? "After rehearsing together, you must have some idea of each other's abilities," Janice continued. "Several people were involved in this decision, so I hope that you can all accept the results. For those who have not been chosen, it doesn't mean that you aren't talented, but simply that someone else is more suited to the position." "If she just announced that I'm the leader, then the others would be disappointed," Melissa thought. "So she's saying this to prepare them so they aren't upset. Then they can focus on supporting me, and I won't have to worry about trying to make them feel better." "I won't make you wait any longer," Janice said, clearing her throat. "Our decision is that—" "What?" Melissa thought, her smile frozen on her face. She didn't know how to react to what Janice had just said. Rita was the leader, and Debbie was the lead singer, which meant that Melissa was nothing. It wasn't fair. "Janice, did you misspeak? Surely Melissa asked, looking at Rita and Debbie in disbelief. Janice sighed softly. She had known that Melissa would question the decision, which was why she had made the speech before making the announcement. "Melissa, listen to me," Janice said. "Rita is the oldest and calmest among you. Besides, she's been in leadership roles before, and she can easily adapt to different situations." "I understand that," Melissa interrupted, her gaze locked on Debbie's face. "But why did you make Debbie the lead singer? In terms of singing skills and musical proficiency, I'm clearly better, so why her and not me?" "Melissa, what's your problem?" Janice asked, annoyed by her attitude. "Do you think that I'm being unfair? You think you should be the lead singer? Fine then, go sing by yourself, but you'll be completely on your own. On the day of the talent show, you can perform solo." "I'm sorry, I was wrong," Melissa quickly apologized. If she kicked up a fuss, then as the manager, Janice could kick her out of the band. Janice glared at Melissa. She had just said that the decision had been made for the sake of the entire team. Melissa hadn't taken her words to heart. "Your singing is very good," she said to Melissa, "but Debbie has a better voice, and her dancing is also a little better than yours. So we decided to let her be the lead singer." Since Janice was the one who had discovered each of the girls, she felt she had to encourage them. "Melissa, the lead singer, may be more famous, but as long as you work hard, each one of you can stand out. I hope you will remember that you are all part of the same band." "I understand," Melissa said, lowering her head. However, she still didn't accept the decision. "I'm glad you can admit when you're wrong," Janice said, smiling as she patted Melissa's shoulder. She said a few more words of encouragement to them all, and then she clamped her hands together. "Okay, I've said everything I needed to say, so get back to rehearsing. We don't have much time left." They all went back to practicing. Janice watched for a while and then left to take care of a few things. Later that night, Debbie and the others finished rehearsing and left the practice room. "Don't think that just because you've become the lead singer that you're anything special," Melissa said, walking past with Katie and Olivia. She shot a disdainful look at Debbie. Once we're on stage, you can't be sure which of us the judges and audience members will love more. Debbie quietly looked at Melissa. Janice had made the decision, so why was Melissa blaming Debbie? You little bitch, Melissa said, snarling at her. Don't think that you can steal my limelight just because you're the lead singer. Next to me, you'll never be worth anything. She walked over to Debbie with her arms crossed and a sinister look in her eyes. Debbie only looked at her with a hurt expression. Look at this little mouse. She's scared of me, Melissa said, smiling as she pushed Debbie away. Then she walked out of the building with Katie and Olivia. A bright yellow Porsche to a halt in front of Melissa. The car door opened, and Melissa's boyfriend, Charlie Mason, stepped out of the car. He was dressed in hip-hop attire, and he also liked the music. Hey, you're here, Melissa said, walking over to him. What's wrong, babe? Why are you looking happy? Charlie asked as he wrapped an arm around her. It's that country bumpkin, Melissa huffed angrily. Janice gave her the lead singer position, and you know I'm a much better singer than her. Why else would they have chosen her over me? Babe, don't get angry, Charlie said, patting Melissa gently to comfort her. It doesn't matter if that girl's the lead singer. She won't steal your limelight. I'll be there in the VIP section, right behind the judges. This year, The Sky's the Limit was being filmed in a mansion in Chicago. On the day of the recording, there would only be around 100 members of staff present, and only 2,000 carefully chosen audience members would be allowed inside. Very few people would be allowed to watch the show. Charlie was rich and powerful, and the seats behind the judges' table were in a great position. Really? Melissa asks happily. That's great. How much did you have to spend? Not much, he said. Just $50,000, and it's worth it to be able to chat with some of the celebrities. I'll record your performance for you. Charlie opened the car door and said, Get in. Let's go home first. Katie, Olivia, it's fine if you don't want to go back to the hotel. You can stay at my place. There are plenty guest rooms. Debbie and Rita walked out of the building. Hey, look at this, Melissa said, sneering at Debbie. My boyfriend came to Chicago with me, and he even has a big house right here in the city. Where's your loser boyfriend? Why isn't he here? Oh, I forgot. He doesn't even own a car. So how could he afford to come to Chicago? He's exactly the kind of person you deserve. Meanwhile, I'm going back to my mansion to sleep, and you'll be taking the bus back to Janice's hotel. Melissa got into Charlie's car with Katie and Olivia, and they drove away. Are you okay? Rita asked with concern. Debbie shook her head slightly. Rita, are you going back to the hotel? Debbie was feeling extremely lonely, and she really wanted Rita to keep her company. Before Rita could answer, a man stopped in front of them. A well-dressed man got out of the car and said to Rita, Are you ready to go? Debbie recognized the man as Rita's boyfriend, and her heart dropped. Wait a moment, Rita said to her boyfriend, and then she turned back to look at Debbie with a hint of worry in her eyes. Sorry, Debbie, I can't go back to the hotel with you. It's okay, Debbie said. Her smile was so forced that Rita felt sorry for her. She helplessly looked skyward. Debbie, I hope you don't mind me giving you some advice, Rita said, looking at her. I really think you should break up with Alex as soon as possible. It's obvious that he can't protect you. So why waste time on him? Rita looked at Debbie seriously. I know he helped you a lot at school and that you love him, but you have to understand that the real world is much more complicated than that. We're all going to be big stars in the future. So even if you don't let go of him now, will you still have time for him once you're famous? I doubt it. You'll be living in two completely different worlds. And since you're destined to be apart, then why not just let him go now? She had been wanting to say that for a long time, and she hoped that Debbie would understand. But Debbie's eyes grew wide, and then she lowered her head and laughed softly, looking slightly embarrassed. I know you're just looking out for me, she said, but I won't break up with Alex. Rita was speechless. She rolled her eyes and looked away in frustration. She had already made the situation clear to Debbie, so why was she being so stubborn? I really appreciate your concern, Debbie said, but I can't break up with Alex. You don't understand what's between us, and he isn't what you think he is. Debbie knew how rich and important Alex was. Even Sam Woodsworth had to listen to him, and Alex was much wealthier than Rita and the others could imagine. Fine, Rita said, a little angry. I won't waste my breath. But since you're willing to suffer with Alex, then you should just stick with him. Debbie was being far too stubborn, and Rita didn't want to argue anymore. She didn't even look at Debbie as she walked toward her boyfriend's car and got in. Rita, please don't be angry, Debbie said. I really want to thank you for looking out for me. If you want to thank me, then think about what I've said and leave him, Rita said through the car window, and then she told her boyfriend to drive away. Debbie was left standing alone. Her smile gradually faded, and a strong sense of loneliness hit her. She pulled up the collar of her coat and walked toward the bus stop. She sat on the bus heading to the hotel and looked out the window at the brightly lit city. After a while, she slowly shifted her gaze to inside the bus. She felt so alone, and when she saw the smiling faces of the other passengers, she couldn't bear it anymore. She leaned her head against the back of the seat and closed her eyes. The days passed in much the same way. 1 day passed, then 2 days. For 7 days, Debbie had worked hard in rehearsals during the day and then took a bus back to the hotel at night. She grew lonelier with each passing day, and the longing for Alex became stronger and stronger. She pictured Alex's face in her mind, but she couldn't smile like she had the last time she had seen him. Her face started to crumble, and her lips thinned. 2 tears slipped from her eyes, sliding down the side of her face and dripping onto the ground. She slowly opened her eyes, which glimmered with tears. Then she took out her cell phone, found Alex's number, and called him. Hey, Debbie, you finally found time to call me. Tell me, do you miss me? Alex's familiar voice came through the phone, causing warm tears to roll down her face again. Why aren't you saying anything? Alex asked, feeling a little worried. It's nothing, she said, controlling herself so that he wouldn't hear her cry. I'm just calling to tell you that we're starting the talent show tomorrow at 8 p.m. That's great, he said. I've missed you so much this last week. She listened to him speak and she wanted him to come and visit her. But before coming to Chicago, she hadn't thought much about it. And now she wasn't sure what to do. She wanted Alex to see her first performance on stage, but she didn't want Melissa and the others to mock her. You called to ask me to come and see you, didn't you? Alex asked, saying exactly what Debbie had most wanted to hear. No, I've been having a good time in Chicago all by myself, she said, smiling. She didn't know why, but when Alex had suggested she wanted him there, she wanted to deny it. She whispered, But if you want to come, then come. I'm sorry, Debbie, he said, but our class is going to the city park to identify plants and I have to be there, so can't come to Chicago. Debbie was stunned. It's fine, she said. You do what you have to do and I'll be fine by myself in Chicago. She ended the call and leaned her forehead against the window. She wasn't aware of anything around her as the bus continued to move through the streets. Back in New York, Alex smiled as he put down his phone. He had intentionally tricked Debbie, saying that he wouldn't go to Chicago to see her. He planned to surprise her, knowing she would be happy when he turned up unexpectedly. At 10 a.m. the next day, a large crowd gathered in front of the building in Chicago where the Sky's Limit would take place. The crowd consisted of mostly young men and women, and they were all there to chase after the stars. This year's judges were also famous singers, and there were many rich people in the audience. With so many handsome men and beautiful women around, how could the crowd not be excited? The talent show was due to begin at 6 p.m. More and more people began to arrive. One by one, the important guests were allowed through the doors to sit in the audience. Luxury cars appeared one after another. Each contained famous, wealthy people, who were all extremely attractive and almost as exciting as the celebrities. Oh, that's the son of one of the richest men in the world, someone said. And that's the president of a huge international company, someone else replied. That's one of the top models in the world. Hey, isn't that the son of one of those noble families in Europe?
and that's definitely the daughter of a Hollywood actress."
The crowd cheered and exclaimed over each of the arrivals. At 5 p.m., the 4 celebrity judges arrived in private cars and walked inside, waving to the crowd and sending them into a frenzy. The girls in the crowd jumped up and down, shouting at the names of their idols and hoping that they would be able to catch a glimpse of them.
"I love you,"
one girl screamed.
"Over here,"
Another yelled.
"You're my favorite singer,"
A girl shouted.
"I got an autograph,"
One fan squealed.
"I'm so happy I could faint."
The bus carrying Debbie and the other contestants slowly moved through the crowd and approached the building. Looking at the people on both sides of the road, Debbie hoped that she would have that many fans one day. Alex combed his hair, tidied himself up, and walked out of the Washington Heights. He called a taxi and went straight to the airport, intending to give Debbie a surprise by showing up in Chicago. After buying the ticket, he waited for 20 minutes for his flight to be called, and then he received a call from Joe. "Alex, I'm treating you to dinner tonight at 8 p.m. You have to be there," Joe said. He seemed very happy, but he didn't explain what was going on. "Oh, I can't. I have something to do," Alex said. He was about to explain that he was going to Chicago to watch Debbie's talent show, but Joe didn't let him finish speaking. "Susan and I are engaged," Joe announced. "Really?" Alex asked. "And her parents agreed? That's great." He was happy for Joe. He looked at the ticket in his hand. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to stay. "Okay, I'll definitely be there. Call the others and I'll see you later." Joe was like a brother to him, and this was wonderful news. It wouldn't be fair if Alex didn't celebrate with him. He would have to change his plans. He felt a little guilty about Debbie, but he had to be with Joe, and Debbie had told him to stay in New York. She probably won't mind, he thought. He had no idea how much he would come to regret this decision. At the talent show in Chicago, the mansion was brightly lit, making it look very elegant. The stage was beside an artificial lake, and the background was made from a large fashion poster with dozens of pretty girls. The colorful lights and the lakes and the trees made the place seem magical. The seats for the 4 judges were directly in front of the stage, and there were dozens of seats in the audience for the most important guests, while the other 2,000 spectators had to stand. In a corner of the seating area, Charlie and Melissa were whispering to each other. "Babe, I'll definitely record your performance," Charlie said. He had a camera hanging from a strap around his neck. "It's just a pity that you're not the lead singer. That country bumpkin has nothing on you. Janice must be blind." "It's fine. So what if she's the lead singer?" Melissa said. "Don't forget, as the lead singer, she'll be the one to take the blame if things go badly," she chuckled. "Why do you say that?" Charlie asked. "Have you thought of a way to deal with her?" He knew Melissa too well. Not only was she not complaining about Debbie, but she seemed to be very happy about the situation. She had to be up to something. Melissa glanced at him with a trace of mischief in her eyes. She lowered her head and took a brown bottle out of her pocket. She looked around vigilantly, hiding the bottle with her body, and then gently shook it in front of him. "What's that?" Charlie asked. Melissa smiled. She stood on her tiptoes and cupped his ear with her hand as she whispered to him. His expression grew more and more excited as she spoke. Then he asked hesitantly, "Isn't that a bit too cruel? And if you make a fool of her on stage, won't that affect you too?" "I don't care," she said stubbornly. "She stole my position as lead singer. And if I perform well, the judges might not care about her. Perhaps this is my chance to shine." She smirked. "Go and sit down. The show is about to start. Remember to make me look pretty when you record me," she said as she walked away. Debbie and the others were doing their final rehearsal under Janice's watchful gaze. When Melissa returned, Janice immediately called her over to rehearse with them. After half an hour of practice, Janice spoke to them, giving them some last-minute instructions. After that, she let them sit and relax to mentally prepare for their performance. There was a lot of performers backstage, and everyone was feeling quite nervous. "Debbie, here, have a drink," Melissa said, walking up to Debbie and handing her a bottle of mineral water. "No thanks," Debbie said. If I drink, I might need the toilet when I'm on the stage. She was suspicious. Why would Melissa bring her a drink? She hadn't expected that. Could she possibly be doing it to get in Debbie's good books? It's fine, Melissa said. It's not that long until we're due on stage. I bought an extra bottle and everyone else already has water. So if you don't drink it, then it'll go to waste. So you may as well have it. She pushed the water into Debbie's hand, and she had no choice but to take it. Drink up, Melissa said. It's good for you. Here, I'll drink too. She smiled, touched her bottle of water to Debbie's, and then drank half of it. Debbie was too embarrassed to refuse. She took a sip of water from the bottle as Melissa watched with a gleam in her eyes. Okay, we'll be going on stage shortly, so get ready, Melissa said, smiling mysteriously. Don't let us down. She walked over to Katie and Olivia. Debbie frowned. Melissa's behavior was very strange, but she decided to forget about it. She needed to focus on the things she had to remember to do on stage. At 8 p.m., while Alex was celebrating Joe's engagement back in New York, the Sky's the Limit talent show began in Chicago. The 4 judges sang a song together, and then they returned to the judges' seats as everyone applauded. The host went up on stage to make a speech, and then the contestants began to perform. Group after group sang and danced, and the 2,000 spectators enjoyed every moment, completely engrossed in the show. They clapped and cheered, and some even had to wipe away tears. The performances were truly brilliant. The atmosphere was electric, but the 4 judges were all more serious. They viewed the contestants a little more harshly, pointing out the flaws and shortcomings of each group. As the time for Debbie and the others to go on stage drew closer and closer, Debbie became increasingly nervous. However, she was confident that she would be able to perform well. But then, she suddenly felt a slight pain in her stomach. She rubbed it lightly, thinking that she must have eaten something that disagreed with her. No doubt she would be fine in a moment. She tried to concentrate on what was happening on stage. The 4 judges were all involved in the music industry, so they knew what they were talking about. Their comments were funny as well as insightful, and the contestants hung on to every word. Meanwhile, the pain in Debbie's stomach became more severe, and she could no longer think about how to perform on stage. All her attention was focused on the pain. You guys are up soon, Janice told them. Once you go on stage, don't think about anything else. You're just as good as anyone else here. She walked to the middle of the group, giving them final instructions. As she was speaking, she noticed that Debbie's face was pale and beads of sweat had appeared on her forehead. Melissa looked at her excitedly. The bottle of water she had given Debbie to drink earlier had contained a very high dose of a drug that she had bought online. A small dose would give someone an upset stomach, and she had given Debbie a much larger dose. What's wrong? Are you okay? Rita asked in concern. She put her arm around Debbie's shoulder. I'm fine, Debbie insisted. Maybe something I ate doesn't agree with me. My stomach's a bit sore, but don't worry, I'll be okay. A bit sore? Rita asked, looking worriedly at her. You're sweating. She looked at Janice and said, I think Debbie needs to go to the hospital. That's right, Janice, Melissa agreed. Debbie seems to be in pain, so she needs to go and rest. Don't worry, I can take over Debbie's position. Do you really think we can just make changes to the group now? Janice asked, frowning. She glanced at Rita and Melissa. The rules of the talent show were very strict, and they couldn't make any alterations. Janice knew Debbie should rest, but it just wasn't possible. Debbie, can you hold on? She asked worriedly, squatting in front of her. I'm fine, Debbie said. I promise. She raised her head and forced a smile. She didn't want to let the others down, and she also didn't want to miss such a good opportunity. Okay, Janice said, gently caressing Debbie's face. It's fine. It's only a few minutes until you go on stage, so it'll be over soon. Once you get off the stage, I'll take you back to the hotel. At that moment, the host on the stage spoke again. Judges, thank you for your wonderful comments. The next group is from New York, the city that never sleeps. 4 charming young women with their own unique personalities. Let's welcome them onto the stage. Put your hands together for Dream Chasers. Melissa and the others started to walk toward the stage, but when Debbie stood up, her stomach hurt even more violently. Every time she tried to straighten up, her stomach hurt twice as bad. "Are you sure you're okay?" Reed asked worriedly, holding Debbie up. Debbie smiled and slowly shook her head. She was in so much pain now that her lips twisted into a grimace. She forced herself to take a breath. The performance would last only for about 10 minutes, so she could endure the pain for that long. Rita wanted to say something, but there was nothing she could do. She took Debbie's hand, and they walked slowly toward the stage. Debbie, Rita, and the rest of the band stood on stage. The song they were going to sing today was Bluebird, the theme song from a Japanese anime movie. It was an energetic song which required them all to sing and dance. The 4 judges in the audience were all quietly waiting for their performance to start. Debbie looked particularly beautiful, and everyone had high expectations for this young girl group, the Dream Chasers. A few purple spotlights focused on the band. Despite having terrible pain in her stomach, Debbie smiled at the audience. Rita turned around and gave a signal that they were ready to start. The conductor's hand was already raised high, and the musicians were set to play. Then, suddenly, a few people thought they could hear barking coming from the back of the venue. Woof, 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 woof. Just as the band was about to start, a man's voice rang out from the audience. "Oh, it's Bluebird. I need to listen properly to this song." In the quiet environment of the auditorium, his voice sounded particularly strident. People in the audience started to ask each other, "Who is it?" "They're recording the whole show. Now his voice will be on the recording. They're probably going to have to start again." The audience started to whisper to each other. Everyone was looking toward the man. "Wait a moment," the director of the show said as he made a halting gesture toward the band on stage. He walked quickly toward the man. The man who had called out was in his late 20s. He was dressed casually in a white t-shirt, black shorts, trainers, and a baseball cap that sat at an angle on his head. He was not particularly handsome, but his mannerisms exuded the air of someone wealthy. He was with a woman who was stylishly dressed. She wore a light blue shirt tucked into her shorts. Her hair was purplish red, and her skin was white and clear. Even though she wore a pair of large sunglasses that covered half of her face, she was very beautiful. The couple was very confident and did not feel embarrassed that they were drawing attention to themselves in front of so many people. They walked through the audience with their large dog, looking around them with cold eyes and pushing people out of the way. Occasionally, they yelled at someone rudely. The director walked over to the couple with a smile. He said, "Mr. Dempsey, you've arrived. Why didn't you tell me in advance that you were coming so that I could have sent someone to pick you up?" Upon seeing the director's reaction and hearing him address the youth as Mr. Dempsey, some of the audience reacted with surprise. One man said, "So he's Lee Dempsey. I heard that he's going out with that supermodel, Angelina Sanders. That beautiful woman next to him must be her." "Isn't this show sponsored by his restaurant chain, the Dahlia Restaurants?" the man's wife asked. He confirmed it. "That's right. We all eat in his restaurants, so we all pay his salary. We would all do well to remember that." By this time, the executive director had approached Lee and his girlfriend. To everyone's horror, their dog suddenly rushed up to the executive director and bit him on the leg. The director screamed and fell to the ground. Lee and Angelina pulled their dog back, laughed, and greeted the director. Angelina said, "Bad boy, Duke," and even pretended to hit the dog a few times. But in reality, she wasn't cross with him at all. They both knew that Lee was an investor in the show, and that the director would want to keep him on his side. They were sure that everyone would see that their dog biting the director had all been a hilarious joke. In the end, it was the director who apologized to them for overreacting. He was desperate not to offend Lee and Angelina. He simply told one of his staff to drive him to the hospital for rabies vaccination and asked the assistant director to take over from him. The 4 judges stood up and shook hands with Lee, exchanging greetings. Although they were all famous musicians, they still looked up to him. After all, they did rely on Lee to earn money. One of the judges even offered him his seat. Lee told him, "You're too kind, but I grew up listening to your songs. I can never take your seat in the presence of so many of your fans. I'm happy just to sit next to you. After all, you're the best in the world at what you do. The band coming on stage now is pretty good. Are they still singing Bluebird next? I'm a fan of their song Fire Shadow. I feel very lucky to be here." Lee chatted with the 4 judges for a while before finding a seat with Angelina. People around them were commenting on what they saw. One lady said, "That's the real boss, Lee Dempsey." Her friend replied, "It must be so good to be that rich. Did you see that? His dog bit the director and he didn't even complain. Why can't we have that kind of life? Stop dreaming, the show's about to begin." With a smile, the assistant director introduced Debbie's band. He said quietly to them, "Dream Chasers, you are particularly lucky because you chose to sing one of Mr. Dempsey's favorite songs. All you have to do is perform to the best of your abilities." Then he looked at the conductor and said, "Get ready. Start." Debbie, who was standing in the middle of the stage, could feel that she was starting to bleed. While this was happening in Chicago, Alex was having lunch in a private room with Joe, Susan, and their friends. They were all enjoying themselves. "Alex, why didn't you bring Debbie along?" Joe and the others knew that Alex and Debbie were together now, although they had no idea that they lived together in Washington Heights. They thought that they must be renting a cheap room somewhere. "Oh, she went to Chicago a few days ago. Tonight she's taking part in the Sky's the Limit talent competition." Alex couldn't help but wonder if Debbie had already finished her performance, or if she was just nervously waiting for it to begin. "Why didn't you tell us earlier? And why didn't you go and watch her perform?" Joe couldn't believe that Alex hadn't gone to support Debbie. He didn't know that Alex had intended to go and surprise her, but had canceled to celebrate his friend's engagement. Alex replied, "It's all right. We talked about it. She said there was no need for me to go. She said it was more important for me to come out and celebrate with you." Alex smiled and said, "Come on, I'm here now, so let's enjoy ourselves. Let's drink a toast to Joe and Susan." Joe laughed and raised his glass. "Drink," he ordered his friends. On the stage of The Sky's the Limit, the 5 girls were jumping around and singing their hearts out. But with every movement, the pain in Debbie's abdomen intensified. All she wanted to do was to stop the show, cover her stomach, and burst into tears. But she knew that opportunities like this were once in a lifetime. The group had worked so hard to get their place in the contest. If it had only affected her, Debbie might have backed out. But as the whole group would lose out if she left, she was determined to continue no matter how bad the pain became. At last, their performance was coming to the end. The climax of the song was a solo verse for Debbie to sing alone, while the rest of the girls danced. A spotlight appeared on Debbie's head as she sang, "Flapping their wings, they flew high in the sky. I said I wouldn't come back. The goal is the pale white clouds. If you can traverse, I know I can. Enough to find. Swing as much as you can. Take off." Debbie tried to give the best performance she could, but singing required her to breathe deeply, and this made her feel as if her appendix was being squeezed in a vice. All her attention was focused on resisting the pain, and she was barely able to control her voice. Several times her voice quavered. Even the most tone-deaf members of the audience could tell that Debbie's singing was poor. Lee sat down, frowning. Debbie reached a crescendo in the song, which required her to take a particularly deep breath. As she breathed in, the pain in her stomach intensified, and her lungs felt like they were being constricted by a python, the pain increasing bit by bit. But she was determined not to give up. With a pale face, she smiled and continued to perform. She was starting to feel very hot. Unaware of Debbie's plight in Chicago, Alex was enjoying himself, drinking with Joe and their friends. He happily picked up a cigarette and joined Ben and the others in cheering and heckling as Joe and Susan kissed. Performing the dance moves, Debbie twisted her waist to the music. Every move she made was a torment to her. It felt as if someone was stabbing her with needles. Bluebird was finally coming to an end. Debbie's vision had become unfocused, and her mind was becoming muddled. She was on the verge of collapse, but she still needed to perform the last few lines of her solo. The other 4 members of the group were dancing around Debbie on stage. Rita saw Debbie's body trembling slightly and gave her a worried look, while Melissa looked on with a sneer. She still hadn't forgiven her for becoming the lead singer. Debbie continued to sing. Flapping my wings and flying high, I said I will not come back. Looking for... It was pure white, the clouds. Debbie's singing became intermittent, and her breathing was raspy. She was even moaning slightly. Debbie had done her best to control her voice throughout the performance, but now she couldn't control it at all. One of the judges commented, "What is this terrible singing?" "We don't even need to give them a score. This segment will definitely be cut out," said another. "I can sing better than that," the first judge agreed. The audience, on the other hand, felt that something must be wrong. They were discussing it among themselves, but they had no idea how much pain Debbie was in. Lee stared angrily at her. Angelina said to him, "Darling, she totally ruined your favorite song. I'm so sorry." Lee didn't say anything, but he sighed heavily.
Duke, don't you think so?
Angelina looked at the dog who was lying on a seat beside her.
Woof, 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 woof.
Duke barked a few times. Sensing that a few people near them were losing their patience with them, Duke started growling at them uneasily. When the people backed away, he relaxed. Angelina rubbed his big head and soothed him. "Good boy, my little Dukey." On stage, Debbie continued to sing as well as she could, but she was struggling because of the severe pain in her stomach. Suddenly, the audience noticed that the singing dramatically improved as another person's voice overshadowed Debbie's. "If I can get through, I know I can find. Trying to get away from the blue sky. Fly to the blue sky, fly toward the blue sky." The voice was loud, melodious, and full of passion. Melissa had danced over to her singing, and Debbie glanced at her gratefully. She was enduring a great deal of pain and was happy to step back and let her take over. Debbie was sure that she was only trying to help her. Melissa had a good singing voice, but it sounded even better in contrast to Debbie's, which had become so weak. The audience and the judge's eyes lit up with relief, while Lee softly said, "Ah," with a trace of admiration in his eyes. When they had finished the song, the 5 girls gave a bow on stage. Finally, the 5 long minutes were over. The moment the music stopped, Debbie's legs gave way and she fell onto the ground. This caused another commotion in the audience. Rita quickly helped her up, but Melissa, who was standing beside her, only smiled coldly. Watching Debbie's weak appearance from backstage, Janice covered her mouth and started crying. If she had known earlier how sick she was, she would never have let her perform, even if that meant forfeiting the competition. She could only hope that she would be okay. The judges were very concerned about Debbie and told her to go backstage and rest. One of them said to Janice, "Is your singer ill? Hurry up and take her backstage to lie down. As for your score, I'm sorry, but thank you for taking part." The other 3 judges agreed. "Indeed, go back and rest. Your health is more important than the competition," one said. Rita was very disappointed. If Debbie had been well, she was sure that they would have done well in the contest. However, now was not the time to worry about the results. She only wanted to make sure that Debbie received treatment as quickly as possible. The 5 girls bowed and were about to step down from the stage when Janice rushed up to support Debbie. Then Lee spoke up so loudly that everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to stare at him. "Hold on a minute." Lee was very angry. He didn't care how sick Debbie was. He felt that singing Bluebirds so badly was an insult. What made him even angrier was that, with so many children around, he couldn't even curse loudly. He muttered to himself, "How dare this group ruin Bluebird for me?" "So, how do you think you did?" "I'm guessing you already know," Lee said as his gaze shifted between Debbie and the others and finally landed on Melissa. He pointed at her and said, "This girl sang quite well. At least her voice was quite pleasing to the ear. Because of her, I'll let you pass to the next round. Because Lee was a sponsor, his words meant everything. Melissa gasped in surprise. She immediately grinned and thanked Lee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dempsey. I promise that I'll continue to work hard.
That's enough. You're getting in the way now. Get down from the stage. Lee waved his hand and the girls walked off the stage. Janice stopped Debbie. She said, "Debbie, wait a minute," and quickly dialed 911, telling them that an ambulance was needed urgently to take someone to the hospital. Janice held the weakened Debbie in her arms and comforted her softly. "Don't be afraid, the ambulance will be here soon," she said. Rita also stood beside her, holding her hand and looking at her with concern. "Rita, I'm in so much pain," Debbie told her friend. Her clothes were soaked with blood now. Her eyes were closed tightly and her hands were clenched. She thought she might pass out. Katie was angry with Debbie and huffed at her. "You have a nerve complaining about being in pain. Because of you, we were almost eliminated." Olivia agreed. "That's right," she said. "You said that you didn't have a stomachache yesterday, and you said the same last night. Then at such a crucial moment, you decide that you do have a stomachache after all. I think you did it on purpose." She crossed her arms and looked at Debbie coldly. Hearing her friends criticizing Debbie, Melissa giggled to herself. At that moment, Rita, who usually managed to stay calm, felt that she had to stick up for Debbie. She asked Katie, "You think she wanted this to happen?" Katie replied, "Did we say something wrong? If it wasn't for Melissa saving us in the end, we would have been eliminated. She almost ruined it for all of us. Can you blame us for being mad with her?" Janice interrupted the argument with a frown. She said, "All right, Katie, Melissa, like I said before, you all have to stick together and look after each other. If one of you succeeds, you all do. Have you forgotten what I said?" "Miss Campbell, please don't be angry. We're just a bit upset. It's not surprising, but I promise we'll all calm down now," Melissa said as she walked over and persuaded Katie and Olivia to sit down. She wanted Janice to see her smoothing things out so that she would have a good impression of her. Debbie spoke up with great difficulty. "Miss Campbell, it's my fault. I'm the one who did wrong. Don't blame them. It's me. I was wrong." Hot tears once again flowed down her cheeks. She looked pitiful. Janice hugged Debbie and tried to comfort her. She said, "No, it's not your fault. Don't say that, and don't worry about anything." The talent show was still going on. Duke, who was lying beside Angelina, stuck out his tongue and started panting. Angelina knew that this meant he was thirsty. "Dukey, are you thirsty?" she said as she touched the dog's big head. Since she didn't want to miss the show, she needed to find someone else to take her dog out to get a drink. Because of Duke's earlier growling, the rest of the audience was keeping their distance. They believed that the dog was aggressive and wasn't going to get anywhere near it. Angelina pointed at a young man and instructed, "You, come here." "Me?" The man that Angelina was pointing to was Charlie Mason. He looked at his friends, but everyone else pretended to be watching the show. He secretly cursed his bad luck and walked toward Angelina with a frown. "Duke, you're not allowed to bark," said Angelina to the dog. When Charlie walked over to them, she pointed at him while looking at the dog and said, "Duke, this young man is going to take you for a drink. Be good and don't bite him." Charlie was scared and embarrassed. He had become a dog babysitter. He didn't dare to take hold of Duke's leash, but he also didn't dare not to. Angelina was Lee Dempsey's girlfriend and was not someone he could afford to offend. In the end, he decided to lead Duke out of the auditorium and to the artificial lake to let him drink water. Thankfully, after listening to Angelina's words, Duke didn't bite him. Perhaps he likes me? Charlie wondered. Melissa, who was at the back of the auditorium with Katie, saw Charlie holding Duke and shouted at him, "Darling, why are you holding the dog?" As Charlie led Duke over to Melissa, other spectators screamed when they saw the huge animal approach. In the end, he persuaded Melissa to walk over to him instead. When he saw her frightened expression, he scratched Duke's head with his hand and said, "This is Auntie Melissa. You're not allowed to bite her." Charlie was enjoying looking after Duke, but Melissa was still too scared to get close. She looked warily at the dog and asked Charlie again what he was doing with it. He told her about Angelina telling him to take the dog for a drink. He wants water? Hearing this, Melissa raised her eyebrows and looked at Charlie with a sinister smile. You wait here. She walked to Debbie's side and picked up the bottle of water that was beside her. Debbie, I need water for the dog. Can I use your bottle? Debbie glanced at Melissa weakly and nodded. The corner of Melissa's mouth raised into a smile. With the water bottle in her hand, she walked back to Charlie. Give him this. Melissa threw the water to Charlie. This was given to Debbie to drink just now. Darling, this dog is Angelina's. Aren't you playing with fire? Charlie had just seen how much pain Debbie was in and was suspicious. Melissa wanted Duke to feel the same pain. But if they did something to hurt him, they would have Lee to deal with. He didn't want that. It is indeed playing with fire. But it's not us who'll get the blame because it isn't our bottle of water. Melissa's eyes looked sly. Quick, give it the water. Seeing Duke licking from the bottle, Melissa smiled. She took the bottle with what was left of the water and quietly placed it next to Debbie. Looking at Debbie, who was leaning against Janice with her eyes closed, Melissa sneered. You sad, she thought. You have no idea that this is just the beginning of your troubles. Charlie took Duke back to Angelina. 20 minutes later, while Angelina was whispering with Lee, Duke began to whimper. After another 5 minutes, Duke was lying on the ground, moaning and sticking out his tongue. No matter how much Angelina tried to comfort her, he didn't recover. Duke, what's wrong with you? Angelina touched the dog's head with a pained expression and looked at Charlie angrily. You, come over here. What did you give him to drink? Nothing, just water. Charlie looked very scared. Rubbish. He was fine before. Then you took him for a drink and he came back like this. Tell me what happened, Angelina said aggressively. Lee was also glaring at Charlie. Everyone around them was staring. There was so much noise coming from the small group that the director stopped the performance on stage and everyone looked over. I just gave him a drink of water from a bottle. The bottle belonged to one of the singers backstage. Honestly, that's all I gave him, Charlie said, trembling. You say you only gave him water from a bottle belonging to someone backstage? Lee stood up and pushed Charlie back a few steps. Take me to get that bottle of water right now. If anything happens to my dog, I'll never forgive you. Of course, Charlie said with a frightened smile. Then he walked in front of Lee with his head lowered. Lee and Angelina walked after him, followed by other members of the audience. A small cart was used to push Duke behind them. When the performers backstage saw Lee arriving, they were all surprised and stood up one by one. Janice and Rita supported Debbie, but just like the others, they didn't know what was happening. You gave your water to my girlfriend, Charlie pointed at Melissa. Mr. Dempsey's dog drank your water and now he's really sick. What? Melissa screamed in fake surprise. She quickly said to Lee, Mr. Dempsey, someone else gave me that bottle of water. It's not my fault. Really? Lee's gaze turned colder. Did you tell that person you were going to give the water to my dog? Yes, I said that the water was for a dog, and you're the only person here with a dog, so she must have known that I meant Duke, Melissa said. Who is this person? Lee asked. Melissa's gaze shifted to Debbie, and she pointed at her. It's her fault. She gave me the water.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.